Hello, YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and starting this week, X. This is Frank with Sage Creek Prepping, back for another week. Sorry for being a day late this week, but issues were beyond my control, but better late than never is what I always say. And we're starting off this week with the first of our Ghost Protocol talks. This is going to be lengthy, like I said, over time. I have, instead of trying to do this off the top of my head, because I'm afraid I'll forget or miss something, and then have to go back and correct it on another video or something, I have instead written this out pretty much word for word. I normally only do it off the cuff or with bullet points, but this stuff is so important. And I need everybody to understand what I'm talking about. So I'm actually writing these down. I'm going to save them in case I get questions later on about them and I can't remember exactly what I said or how I said it. So I'll have a copy of it. So, like I say, welcome back. This is week 2. This is actually the start of the Ghost Protocols. And what this is actually our journey to be prepared, but more importantly, to be unseen. And if we can be unseen, hopefully, we can be untouchable in a world that's in the process of coming apart. Now, before we dive in, I want you to hear my heart on this, okay? It is really my deepest desire, not that people barely survive a SHTF scenario or a grid down collapse or a natural disaster, but that you can learn how to thrive in the chaos of those times. What I want you to do is I want you to be able to fall back on faith, hopefully, and rejoice like the Apostle Paul did with his companions, with all that he went through, even if, when he was in captivity, chained to a wall, he found reasons to rejoice. And I think we can also. No matter how bad it gets, I think we have the potential to be able to rejoice about it. And, just a reminder, Paul wrote some of his most joyful letters from a dungeon with a fellow named Titus. And look, I ain't here to beat you over the head about it, but if you ain't got Jesus Christ in your life, you're going to have a much more difficult time surviving whatever comes. So what Ghost Protocols is really all about is preparing so thoroughly, yet so discreetly, that when everything does fall apart, number one, you're not panicking. You're at peace through the chaos. You know by your preparedness that you're provided for. And I hope you're in a position where you can talk to and maybe minister to people during a SHTF event, or minister to others from the shadows. Okay? Now, this series, like I said, we're going to be slow. It's a deep examination of each subject I'm going to be bringing up, okay? And it's to get prepared now, not to prepare at the last moment. Look, preparedness has to be deliberate. We have to layer our preparations because Murphy's Rule, if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. And trust me, when you're stressed, there's going to be that much more that will go wrong. So we're not rushing into this. We're going to build something. We're going to try to build you a system that is unbreakable. Now, last week we started laying a little simple groundwork, okay? This week, we're going to begin to dive deeper, okay? And the first pillar of the ghost protocols, or gray man living, whatever what you want to call it, is invisible stockpiling. Now, we'll be here for several weeks on this subject, peeling back every layer as we go until it actually becomes a part of who you are. Why are we going to go deep? Because you need to understand everything there is about this. Because if your stockpile is invisible, half your battle is already fought. Because if people think you have nothing, they will not bother you. They're going to be after food, ammo, water, generators, all this stuff. And if you appear not to have it, they'll pass you on by. But look, if your preps are visible, if your neighbors have seen you and think you're prepping, or you've been bragging about prepping, you're going to be a target. There's no doubt about it. If you lay all this out for the community to see that's around you and surrounds you, you're going to spend the crisis defending your stuff when you could be out living life, maybe ministering to people that don't know Jesus and are freaked out by everything that's going on. But if you're prepared, if your stuff is hidden, you've got a lot more free time. You're free. Not unlike Paul was free in the prison, okay? Now, there's quiet preppers in Venezuela. They were quiet preppers in Weimar, Germany. Even the early church believers prepped. Now, listen, I use this proverb over and over and over. And it seems like nobody gets this, but this is one of the most important proverbs I think there are in the entire Bible. The prudent sees danger and hides himself, while the simple passes on and suffers through it. Look, don't overlook these things. Don't cause yourself to suffer needlessly when the grid goes down or the TF hits. Now, another topic I've heard is, well, hiding your stuff's kind of cowardice, ain't it? No, it's not cowardice at all. It's wisdom. It's wisdom. It's forethought. It's understanding the nature of human beings so that you can rejoice other than despair over your stockpiles. You'll gain time if you do what you need to do now and don't wait till it's too late. Now look, yes, we need to connect to prepper communities in our area, but those prepper communities in our areas need to be on the same game plan that everyone else is, okay? If they're bragging or advertising about their preps, you don't need to be involved in a situation like that, because it's going to make your survivability even worse. But here's what you need to do, okay? You need to learn to integrate stuff. You need to learn to integrate your preps. Blend your supplies into everyday spaces. Make it look normal. You need to distribute stuff in redundancy, okay? You don't need to have all your stuff in one spot. And I'm talking about, when I say spot, I mean your house, your home, your apartment, your homestead, wherever you may be living. You do not need to have everything in one spot. If you do, you're up for trouble. Because when trouble arrives and they take everything you've got, then you have no more. But if you've built redundancy into your systems, okay, if someone robs you blind at your main property, you've got backups 10, 15 miles away, 20 miles away, 50 miles away, 100 miles away. Build redundancy. And remember always, as Bear Independent is fond of reminding people right now, eventually everything boils down to this. Great movements of people has always been man portable. Man portable, meaning it's only what you can carry that'll get you through. You can only travel with what you carry. Okay? So don't put all your eggs in one basket, especially a visible basket. And do it gradual, and do it without drawing attention to yourself. Don't walk into Kroger's and grab 25 jars of peanut butter or 50 dozen eggs. That's not going to do it. As you go to the store, maybe on certain items, double what you would normally get and put the doubles back. Maybe some things you could triple, like soup. People wouldn't think anything about you buying a bunch of soup. Buy a bunch of soup, put most of it back. But whatever you do, don't say to somebody, I'm putting this back for a hard time. Because believe me, when people get hungry, they will remember people that spoke about this stuff. So do not do that. Make your purchases small and over time. You need to be able to convincingly deny that you're doing any of this and make what you're doing, your prepping, look absolutely normal. Everything you do needs to have a plausible, boring explanation. Now, these principles, look, they're not hacks. They're bedrock, okay? This is bedrock stuff. Now, we're going to revisit this stuff probably nearly every week. In the coming weeks, we're going to be hitting specific techniques, materials, and scenarios, all right? But you need to start today. Start with slow actions. Do a quiet home audit. Go through, check off everything you've got so you know what's there before you start. Or know how little you really have, because that's usually how we all fall. We have a lot less than we think we do. And listen, this is probably my number one thing because it's the number one Achilles heel of every prepper out there. Water, water, water. You're never going to have enough water. Water, people. You can live without food. You can't live without water. You can live without coffee. You can't live without water. You can live without Cokes. You cannot live without water. It's water. Now look, go through your home and find you some space in your home. Maybe under stair steps, maybe bedroom closets, maybe in the attic. Any place you think stuff will be safe, wouldn't freeze, or wouldn't roast, okay? You need to mark that area as a possible hiding place for your preps. Now, sometimes you can make your preps look absolutely normal. You can line the whole back of your cabinets with canned food, put other food in front of it. Somebody opens up your cabinet door, it's going to look like you've just got a normally stocked cabinet. When in reality, you've got a lot of food hidden in the back there. But we're going to get into a lot more of this much deeper. Now then, the reason I stopped a minute ago and talked about water is because the one thing you need to start with is water. Water, water, water. First off, first thing you ought to do, try to get 14 gallons of water for every person you have and get it hid. 14 gallons of water for every person in your household and get it hid. Now, what's that going to do, Frank? That's going to give you 3 days worth of water, hopefully, per person. Because some people say 1 gallon, some people say 2 gallons. honestly, your water usage is about 5 gallons a day. Unless you're really going to watch it and there's going to be no baths, you're not going to wash hands, you're not going to clean dishes, you're not going to do anything but drink. Then you might get away with 2 gallons a day. All this other stuff, you better be figuring on 5 gallons of water a day. Now, don't rush out and buy a bunch of totes and stuff. It's not time yet to start digging a hole and putting caches in, okay? First thing we need to do is work on our discernment. And the discernment's going to tell you who you can trust and where's your best spots. Discernment in everything is paramount. Now look, privately, get your little notebook out, write down your audits that you find this week. What are we short on? What am I surprised we've got? What do we need to get? Most homes is going to be way short on water and medical supplies, over the counter and prescription both. And we'll get into ways to accumulate that stuff in coming weeks. Ask, if you're a believer, ask the Lord to show you spaces. You'll be surprised. The Lord is all too welcoming when you ask Him to help. And He can reveal stuff that your and my eyes probably will never see. But anyway, this is what I'm talking about for this week. As I say, it's going to be slow and intense. We're going to prepare like an ant, hide like the prudent, trust like Paul, so that when the storm hits, we can rejoice and jive on, people. Now listen, God bless you. Keep yourself unseen. Start practicing today. If you can keep yourself unseen, you're going to end up being unshaken and full of joy and hope. So, see you next week. We're going to really start diving deeper into the methodical prepping with this ghost protocols. We're going to go much deeper into invisible stockpiling. So until next week, this is Sage Creek Prepper Frank saying God bless and see y'all next time. Good day.